Look at all the butterflies. I hope it shows up well. There's lots of them. Because there's life now. This area here is also a little project up there at the vetiver that looks very nice. And the vetiver is growing well. The poppies make also a very good image here. And you see there's grasses that are green, but further down here it's all brown and baking in the sun, because these grasses are cold season grasses. They won't come back. I have on order Cynodondactylon, Bermuda grass, and my intention is to put this here. If I had the right mix, then I would also have been cutting away here. But the only things that I can cut are things like these that are for the warm season. And here there is Bermuda grass. It is everywhere, but of course it's not covering the whole area because of the things due to overgrazing in the past. But it's coming back. Yeah, there are some plants, but of course it needs a lot more to actually fill this area and make it green. I can throw out as much water as I want. This is still an area that is not thriving because the right type of plant isn't there. So this stuff here is working with all the water, but the area still is reported as very dry. Right there's the sensor, because it sits in the sun and there's not much around it. So we need the two types of grasses, so that this is an area that is green year round. See here, there's another variety. It's not Bermuda grass, but this is also something that works well with the heat that we are now having. And of course in between the vetiver there's other things. I need to cut some of that so that it does not overwhelm this area and the vetiver can continue to work. So up here you can see the vetiver, but that edge here, that is before the vetiver, and there the other plants take advantage. And there's a gap with no vetiver because it got destroyed for many different reasons in the past. So I think at some point when we have our nursery working, then there will be a lot more vetiver to plant out, and then we can fill this gap. And someone was asking about the rest of the land. Well, the person said the rest of the farm. So there isn't much of a farm, I have to admit. So this piece there is ours, all the way to the wall there. And as you can see, there's nothing being done. That is the area where later I want to dig another huge pond, 4 meters deep, and basically half of this should be a pond, and I want to establish a riparian area left and right of this, so that I have enough water stored from the winter, autumn and also spring to establish summer plants to create the much needed shade. And the focus is on the farmyard. So all the things here and there in the back, the immediately adjacent area. And when this is done, then the adjacent area to the adjacent area gets taken on and so on. Because I have learned that this is a very important thing. So you need to establish something like that, and then you can build something like it next to it, and eventually these things will help each other. And of course I need to budget, in this case not the money but the water and the solar power, so the energy to drive all the pumps. And that of course is then related to money, because we have to irrigate during the day, because we don't have enough battery so that we can afford to spend a significant amount of energy during the night. This will change over time, as it is my intention to have more solar panels and more storage, but that of course requires the money, so it's an investment. So even with the new batteries, we have 27 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. Here and there, if we irrigate a lot using the big pumps, we do have to run the generator at night in order not to run out of power, because it's hot, and we also run air conditioning. So therefore I need more solar power, and after that more batteries, and after that more solar power, and then more batteries, and so on. And eventually, yeah, we might then be able to irrigate some areas at night. But the majority of the irrigation still needs to happen during the day, when there is free power available. Free in quotation marks, it's not free. It's every step, it's a huge investment. So it's smart to think in 10k euro increments, to put it that way. As we expected earlier this year, when we were discussing this in the comments, this year is going to be different. We just got another rain shower. It was short, brought a little bit of water, but this is different, as it's supposed to be, I would think. Because it makes not a huge difference to the humidity level in the soil, but it makes a difference on the energy level, because right now solar power is pretty much limited, because this blocks the sun. But in a moment, that piece of blue sky will be upon us again, and then things progress from there on. But it's nice, it's refreshing. And as I am here, I can walk over and have a look at the there's a little bit more sprinkling coming on. So here's the zucchini, and the grass has grown, but the zucchini maintains its position on top. So this is exactly as was expected and hoped for. So this is good. Of course, there are also some other things there in between, but I can rip them out if needed. But then as long as the zucchini is there, everything is good. The only thing that I don't like is this thorny thing that is trying to establish itself there. Need to put on some gloves. This is nasty stuff, and you don't want this in your hand. This is very satisfying. Today it was hot, 38 degrees Celsius, and I just finished cutting this grass here. Thick grass, thick Bermuda grass. This is making soil, and This is just great that I can do this in summer when it is hot. I'm the only one in a very long distance who has been cutting grass today, because everybody else is dry now, and this looks lush. Of course, this is thanks to the irrigation, but on the other hand, the soil here is soft, and that is what makes me so happy. And those trees, they provide the shade, as you can see here to the left, and that will help, so that later on here we can plant other things, vegetables. And speaking about vegetables, so the zucchini over here is also growing. I should give you an update. So here is one that belongs to it. This also. So there's another one. So they sit a little bit in the shade under the leaves from this tree. There are more in there. I had a closer look. So far this experiment is turning out very well. The zucchini stays on top and the Bermuda grass stays below. Of course, there are some other pioneer species like that one here that I would like to take out. I tried there on the edge where I can reach it easily without stepping into this too much, but so far this works out. So Bermuda grass as a ground cover to grow something like zucchini on top is not a problem at all, because it will not grow over the zucchini. The zucchini will stay on top. Watermelon will be the very same thing, and I expect something similar to happen to the watermelons over there. I should go there as well, but that probably will be for tomorrow. There in this patch is still lack of ground cover, which is why it is dry. But eventually the Bermuda grass should also go there because it gets wet. But it might also be that this Paulownia tree needs to provide a bit more shade there in this area. The other one unfortunately died. But we will have quite a few zucchini very soon. So I would say in 2 months we should be able to harvest them. And here where I'm standing, so I will show you this. I am next to this tall tree, and here on the other side there is more, and it definitely feels a lot cooler here and quite nice. I also did something today between these trees. Of course, that was when it was still very hot, and I felt like in a tropical rainforest, and I was sweating because of the surrounding humidity. So there's also that. And Knut here just came through this. So they break off some very low leaves because they also like this place. Oh, it's working out very well. And these trees, they were a little bit ruffled and feathered, but look at the branches that they are building. So this wants to go up. Once the root system is established, it works for them. And keep in mind, those Paulownia trees first make a tube, and then the tube gets filled and becomes a branch. That is why they grow so fast. They take a shortcut. But not everything is that way. So for example, we put this hose here today because over here, despite the fact that this gets irrigated, the first tree here, the cherry tree, does not like the heat and is drying out. So that's a bad thing. So these two here need an extra ration, despite the fact that there is the irrigation. But this is the bad soil. And I also think that these trees are actually layer 2, while those are more layer 1 trees. because they like the heat. They like 35 degrees Celsius. And so my idea is, when the next batch of trees will arrive, of palovnia trees, then I will add a few here to chop them down later, partially, in order to have some shade here. So I can probably set a big one there. So I hope that this will then go big, and that will then provide the shade to here. The same way as the shade close here works, because inside of the box the shade is notable. And that makes a lot of sense. And with additional dripping, this salad there is also growing. There are also some strawberry plants that got out planted, and the tomatoes here, they are also starting to grow very well. There's some basil in between, and of course it is growing so fast that we need to harvest it and also remove the flowers, because if not, then the plant says, okay, I'm now in the reproductive state, and therefore I do not want to make more leaves, but instead reproduce myself. And then it switches gears and will then put all the energy in making seed instead of providing the leaves that we like to have for our tomato sauce. In between there is something that I can rip out, but between the potatoes, it's not so difficult. The potatoes, they cover this very well. But the smaller ones here, they are still an issue. The lemon tree has recovered. Apparently the application there in its root zone of fertilizer has worked. It is less yellow, so that's good. And I can take you over here to show you something else that we did here to the left. So we have still our stuff here because we might want to continue. So we put up this fence in a temporary way. It is just tied to these fence posts because it's not a done deal yet. For example, here there will be a door at some point. And the house there for the geese has been removed. It now sits over there in the very back, so that we have this area here and can plant more trees. And now that Carlotta, the goose, is not able to come in here, but only the smaller chicken, we can set trees and likely do not need to protect them like this. Let's have a look here. This is the one that sits a little bit in a tough spot because this is very dry soil. It gets irrigated quite a lot, but of course this dries out quickly. But apparently this guy will make it. Of course the surface is dry, maybe an hour after irrigation, but further down, and the stuff is loose, there is moisture. And I made this on purpose like this, so that in there water can accumulate. And the trees will grow over this anyway, and then something will happen there, so it doesn't need to be even. I don't want to walk there. And over time, plants and bacteria will break this down, and this will level itself. So there in the shade, for example, you see this is darker, not because of the shade, but because it's moist, I'm pretty sure. The grey water pond there has no effect on this side, because that wall is concrete, like concrete. So that is the challenge. I might actually add to the system here another type of drip irrigation, so that it's not only the whole area, but directly the trees. So I will see how this develops with that one. And when the others arrive, it might then be smarter to also have a direct water source. On the other hand, that one there is growing very well. But the soil there, I'm wondering. So here I dug to loosen it up, but there I didn't. It might very well be that the moisture goes down and disappears, while there it stays for longer. So this is the thing. I want to know how to best plant these palovnia trees. And of course, if I read the instruction manual that is available, they say, yeah, you need to use a tractor and a subsoiler, rip the soil at 50 centimeters depth. Yeah, this is all very nice on a field where you want to establish a plantation. That's not my case. So I'm trying to see how I can do this. And it might very well be that I just make a small hole, put the tree from the pot into it, and let the tree manage everything else. They seem to work very well and better than this guy. So as this has been disturbed just before planting it, it's all dry stuff. And until this is very wet, like elsewhere, where the irrigation ran for a long time, this will take too much time, and therefore the tree is suffering instead of taking advantage. So I'm leaning towards not digging, or only scratch the surface a little bit with a hand tool. But this is all like this until here, and then on the other side here, where the puddle is, which is also very interesting, there we don't have this. We put the fence here so the excavator can reach in if we wanted to, but I guess that's not necessary. So here the soil is definitely better because the irrigation has been working here for a very long time now, and therefore also when digging, the soil is definitely blacker. So this is a very good sign. And by the way, I also cut down all the pioneer species here. I did this on purpose, so that when the trees arrive, it is easier to set them. And I guess these pioneer species, they were done anyway, so they will not regrow, and therefore give advantage, or the trees get advantage. So there are the other two that were set in their cages. I didn't cut down here a lot, probably should in the next step. And let's have a look at this guy here, the last one, how this one looks. So this is the one that had me worried, but look, it looks very good. So it was just that it got planted in dry soil, and now with the irrigation and no way for the water to disappear because it's compacted, this works out. So there's another data point to say we don't have to dig. Just irrigate ahead of time. That's probably the thing. And I think that is the recipe now. That we just put irrigation up, let develop whatever wants to develop, and then come with these palovnia trees as a pioneer species for shade and biomass. And then, so the opposite of what you see, and then we can add the other trees. So we did this in the wrong order here, but of course I didn't know. So now I know better. So that seems to be a good recipe to place these palovnia trees after the irrigation has been there for a while, and then thin them out or put in between, depending on how they have grown, fruit trees and other things. And we can treat them as soil makers, as pioneer species. That seems like a good idea. And this fence here, of course, it's a bit wobbly because it's only attached on the top with a little bit of wire. This is supposed to be tensioned between the fence posts, but for that the fence posts themselves have to sit a bit tighter because we had to use the excavator instead of an auger, so they're a little bit loose. But time and rain and soil biology will take care of that, and then we can tension this. There is no need to have this very well at the time being, because there will be no animals pushing against it or something like that. And when there will be, then they will push in that direction. So the first animals that I can see here in this lane, once the wobblers are gone, also found a solution for that already, will probably be the pigs on their way to a different place, or no animals for the time being, but it's supposed to be an animal lane eventually. Let's have a look at this area here again. So this is what we call B3. It is adjacent to the Valle food forest, and I placed here, together with the irrigation, some Palovnia trees. So there is one, there in between there is another, and as you can see, here we have more. And now let me step in here a little bit carefully. So right here, and then there is another one, and there are two more. So this is all spaced in such a way that they do not interfere with the existing oak trees, like that one here, and also form some sort of a lane. And I have more here on the other side, so that in between other animals can then roam and forage. And you can see that the irrigation also makes the other pioneer species come up. So all this, and as long as the Palovnia trees stay on top, they are welcome, and if not, I come and chop them down. So here I placed them right next to the fence, and therefore they should grow over that fence eventually. So the branches will not be allowed to go there because that's a path. And then that space is reserved for something. Of course, they will grow in from both sides, so they can be 6 meters in diameter, and the ones over there, they are certainly already at the 4 to 5 meter diameter. And actually it's the radius, I think. Okay, but you understand what I mean. So no, it's the diameter, so that's okay. So the idea is to have them here, and then there should be another lane there, but from here on I should place them like this, so that eventually there are lanes coming from over there. So there in the back I want to have an animal lane, and then the animals can come here lane by lane, and I can put some gates there to allow them access. And by animals I mean chicken, geese, this kind of animal.